Feel free to sanitize the microphone if you want to.
Matt was licking it earlier just to make sure.
Welcome back to Drydock Talk. My name is Matt, and today I have a special episode for you. Now, when Nathan Young and I started Drydock Talk, we recorded several interviews that were never published. Today, we get to listen to one of those, an interview with James Porter from 2017. In this episode, James, the director of the Christa McAuliffe Space Center, shares his journey from starting as a junior high camper to leading the program. He recalls his early experiences volunteering and flight directing, then leaving to pursue a teaching degree before eventually returning as director. He also discusses his vision at the time, before the Central Elementary School rebuild, for expanding the center's impact, particularly through a new planetarium, and how he hoped to inspire students in STEM and beyond. Think back to where you were 8 years ago. How much has changed since then? This is a blast from the past, so get ready to revisit history. Here we go.
Welcome to Drydock Talk. My name is Matt.
My name is Nathan, and we are here today in the office, once more, of the Christa McAuliffe Space Education Center with the famous James Porter. Hi, James.
Welcome.
Hi.
How are
I
you
think
doing today?
you're welcoming me to my own office.
Yeah.
Yes, and, well,
And to
But
the
welcome to
internet
Drydock.
worlds at length, or at that
That's
large.
true. I feel very welcomed by the internet.
that's
Oh,
good.
that's
Is it
good.
okay if we call you James?
That's fine.
Wonderful. It sounds great. Well, we are very excited to finally get a hold of you because it has been like a month and a half or so. And we're like, hey, we should do an interview. And you're like, I don't know. So why the apprehension a little bit?
I'm busy.
Ooh, very valid. Busy with what?
Everything is a good excuse.
Well,
Mm,
there you go.
That makes sense.
Because then you don't have to be specific. Because then they know when you're not busy.
Ooh.
Very true.
Crafty. Very crafty.
Yeah. But we caught you, finally.
Yes.
We did.
We're very glad that we were able to do so. And we've just got a couple of questions to get to know you a little bit better and to find out what you're up to and what you're planning for this crazy Space Center ship that you're running. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Perfect.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Very true. So, first off, tell us about you. What do you do?
Mostly I'm being sick right now. Is that what you want to know? Or no? Tell us about yourself. So I started off, since it's related to the Space Center, back when I was in junior high is when I really got involved with volunteering and everything else. But that volunteering and my experience with the Space Center pushed me to go into education, and so I went and got my degree up at Utah State University. My degree is in the true path, in that I went for a social studies teacher, just like Christa McAuliffe.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I figured that I get to go into space next.
How did you first get involved in junior high with the Space Center?
So I went on many camps. Mostly I would pair up with my brother. We would go to summer camps. I didn't really ever do any birthday parties. It was too expensive. And I didn't save my money very effectively back then. And if I did, then my brother would take it and spend it on things without me knowing about it.
He'd go on the birthday parties without you.
Well, we also we knew we'd save up for camps. And
Yeah.
that was what we appreciated and enjoyed.
That's cool. So, did you ever do the 6th grade mission, or did you just start doing summer camps right off?
No, I remember very much. It's pretty vivid. Getting on the bus, I remember paying my $2 contribution to be able to go on a field trip. And I can remember pulling out of Cascade Elementary, going down State Street, and then pulling in to Central Elementary. I remember all of that very, very vividly.
Do you remember what mission you flew?
The aspects that I remember about the mission, and the problem is that as I've come back to the Space Center, everything merges into different stories and different accounts, and oh, that was this mission, or maybe it wasn't. So I never, can get the name quite right. But one of the things that I do remember uniquely happening is I was at left wing. I don't think I was left wing power, but I might have been one of the secondary damage control officers. And I remember that at one point we had to play dead, and that a Klingon came onto our ship. I believe it was a Klingon, and we were all supposed to keep our eyes closed and not look up or make any movement because we were dead. And I remember with that one that the Klingon planted a bomb that ended up being down in the microwave that we had to find later. And those are some of the specific things that I remember from that first flight. Beyond just kind of some of the general experiences, but that's the part that I remember most vividly.
Wow. I want more microwaves in our spaceships.
Yeah. I want more bombs and Klingons.
I think there's enough bombs.
Yeah, especially in the Magellan nowadays.
Yeah.
So you came as a camper. You did lots of field trips. When did you start volunteering?
So my brother was part of the kind of Orem contingency that came and helped out with, I guess it was for the overnighters. The Orem contingency would come and help with overnight camps, and they would do the security training, and they would go out into the halls, and they did a segment. And as I look back at it now, and I look at how we design our summer camps, and I think, okay, when do we have time for some of these different things? And I don't remember how Vic organized it, but apparently they had enough time to spend, a good half hour or something with us, and they would rotate through. So they'd have a couple of different groups that would rotate through and do security training in the hall as part of the overnight camp. And I ended up tagging along with them, and I spent many hours hiding in the lost and found cart, waiting to pop out as a pirate or whatever it was that we were pretending to be. We did a lot of security training. People like, so my brother, Stephen, Carl Cranny, Dylan Finch, Joe Lamson. These are some of the old-timers that all came together. Jason Hills. Jason Hills was brought along because he had a camo net and a strobe light. That was how he got in, I think. They're like, wow, you've got stuff that makes our setup look really cool. You can come too. And then we found out that he was the best actor out of all of us, so that works out.
Wow. So you went from hiding in a hiding in the lost and found cart to being a flight director. What ship did you fly?
Well, it was a long path before I got there. So eventually, after my brother was, let's see, I'm trying to think of the sequence. So eventually, Stephen got on to being a full-fledged, recognized volunteer, and because of that, he had other responsibilities actually in the ships, and they needed someone to keep doing security training. So I ended up being the last of that group of kids that didn't have other responsibilities elsewhere, and so I pretty much did all of the security training with Mark Damont, and so Mark Damont at that time, they had transitioned to, rather than doing just kind of a hallway scene, I would set up the gym, and I'd set up about 5 or 6 tables, dozens of chairs, mats, and so that's what I would do for the first hours. I'd spend an hour or so just setting up the mission, and then I'd wait, and I'd go and hang out in the Voyager, being very much who is this? And I'm just here helping out with security training. Oh, okay. And I'd just sit there quietly and watch what was going on behind the scenes until I knew it was time for me to go and help with security training.
So, quick question, really quick. What would you teach during security training? Is it like what we do now, or it's just get from point A to point B without dying, or is it like teaching them tactics, like how to sneak around or something like that, or how would you handle that?
Yeah, so usually with security training, they'd have maybe upwards at the most 8 of the kids that would be there. And we would set up Marvin in the very far left corner if you were looking from the stage down. Marvin would be back there behind one of the chair racks and whatever other, variances I'd put up for barriers,
Mhm.
and they were told that they just had to get their little Nerf dart to stick on Marvin, and Marvin's Mark would make up whatever of what character it was supposed to be that they were taking out, but he said, you don't know what else is out there, and so what he would do is he would slowly open up the curtains, and as the curtains open up, there's red rotating lights going on, and it's dark in the gym, and the kids are just, whoa, what's out there?
Mhm.
And they didn't realize that it was just me.
Oh, really?
Eventually there were a couple of times where I got some of the other kind of new volunteers. I think Josh Webb's brother was one of the frequent ones. He had a younger brother that would help out, and they'd give me a helper every once in a while. But there were quite a few times where it was just me. And so what Mark would do is he'd say, oh, they use illegal drugs out there, and they've enhanced their performance, and so you're going to have to hit anyone that's out there more than once. But my general tactic was they would come, and we'd always put a barrier right at the base of the steps.
Mhm.
And so you knew that's where they would all go and huddle behind, because that was the one protected spot once you come down the steps. And so I would just run past them, shoot one or two of them, and then circle back around and do it again, because they were just so scared about what was going on that they didn't know how to react. And so I'd pick off enough of them until finally they were brave enough. You'd get the one brave kid that would go and slide towards a table, and it was great. You knew that was the one kid you had to take out, because the rest would just not ever shoot. They'd shoot in the air, because you'd make a lot of noise. I'd stomp my feet, yell, and just scare them so that they couldn't react. So that was pretty much what we did. And after about this once we got to the third game, I'd lose, for sure.
Mhm.
But the second game was kind of the iffy one, where they were like, oh, okay, he'd say, what can we learn from this? How can we work together? And they said, well, there's more of us than him. And he goes, yeah, can he shoot you all at once? No. And they just mob me. If they'd figure it out, that's what they would do. So, and then from there, we'd split up, and they'd do a couple of different activities.
Nice.
That's cool.
That's exciting.
I guess going back to what you're saying, you kind of spent some time behind the scenes there, just waiting to do security training. And is that how you started being noticed, or?
So in those days, it was very much you waited for an opening.
Mm-hmm.
If someone was more skilled than you in doing a certain task, you waited until either they were sick and you got to fill in, or you finally just had your chance to prove yourself. They'd give you a go at it after doing small acting parts or other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the key positions was everybody wanted to get in and to be the doctor, because that was like a dedicated, you got to be there. But it also meant for votes and other things, it was very recognized.
Mhm.
And so that was one of those positions that was available. The Odyssey Doctor was probably one of the most coveted spots, I think. But that's because that's where most of those people who I had come into the Space Center with, that's where they transitioned. And they very much, that Orem group became Odyssey if
Mhm.
they hadn't left already for other things. So, so I would occasionally be the Doctor on the Voyager as opportunities came, and as they kind of stopped doing security training, they felt obliged maybe to keep me around, because I had spent months and months doing it just with Mark. Mark, actually, one of the other things that he would do is he would do a tactical training, and I would be the bad guy who was the piece. I would move all of the pieces for the bad guy ships, and Mark was just the moderator between this tactical training that they did with his Star Trek board game that he had. But then going from Doctor, I never really got any time in the Odyssey until much, much later. But the key was one summer. Let me see if I can give you a date then. I would say it's probably the summer of 99. Yeah, summer of 99 or 2000. That's when I got to be the engineer in the Voyager. So when they had the dedicated engineering section, where the bunks currently are, up on the bridge, they would have a volunteer sit there and only help and direct and entertain the engineers, because sometimes Vic would load up one engineer, and okay, that's pretty easy. But then sometimes he'd have 3, and very rarely he'd have 4 if he overbooked a camp. and it became my responsibility and the engineer's responsibility to go through and keep those 4 or 3 usually entertained throughout the whole overnight or summer camp or whatever it is. So I just kept, my responsibility was to make engineering activities for them, whether it be crawling through the Jeffries tube that was over by the engineering section. Actually, that would probably give you a better date of figuring out when it was, because it was the transition year. We had transitioned between... Yeah, those bunks came later. So there used to be a Jeffries tube in the engineering section, or over by the engineer that was by the captain.
So up on the raised platform?
Yeah, so that was the new remodel, and maybe that was 2000? I think that was 2000.
Yeah, because I remember that they had, like you said, the engineering section, but they had like a small Jeffries tube and a bunch of panels kind of surrounding
it. And there wasn't
it.
any seat up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's... but I'm trying to think, I think they kept... Is that when they got... That must be when they got rid of the engineering section and put in bunks.
Is that in the what's
Actually, I
now
think the
called as
bunks
the
still
sick
came
bay?
later. They remodeled. You have to verify with someone. I think they remodeled and then tore out the engineering section at a later phase. So that stayed there for a while. Because I remember having the opportunity for them to go and do things over in the other area. Oh, no. Actually, no. It does make more sense. I don't think I ever had the engineering section and the engineer up in that corner space.
When you say engineering section, is that reference to the little room next to security and the stairs down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the engineering section.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the engineering loft. We'll call
The
it
captain's loft, as it's called in recent years.
No. It was
the
there's the
raised
captain's
platform
loft.
in the other
Platform.
corner.
I don't know
the
what you would
platform.
call the
Yeah.
platform, because that to me always is the Jeffries tube.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it was. That was that. We would have the engineers carry small, what looked like gigantic pills that were full of liquid. That if they spilled it, even though it was totally sealed or cracked it, which they did do a few times, which is why that eventually stopped because they all broke. But yeah, they do you'd have an engineer going across the bridge tiptoeing, and another engineer blocking everybody else from even touching them because they knew that if this got jostled too much, it could cause an explosion and kill everybody. So those are the kind of engineering activities that we did with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I got in trouble from Vic because they had redone the mats that were or the little cushions that were in the brig on the Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, can I have one of those? Because we're not using the old ones. And he said, sure. I said, and so I took it, and where the ice linear chips were, across from that were the cooling rods for the engine systems. They'd have to pull out the cooling rods to a certain length, depending upon how fast they were moving. But it was pretty much an empty container on the inside, and there was a little hatch. And it was just wide enough that you could put a nice little cushion in there. And it became the place that I would go and take a nap, from time to time. Not ever while working, and that's why Vic got mad. He thought I was doing that while working, because Bill, I think, found it at one point. And I said, no, that's when I'd go and, I'd eat my lunch. I'd go take the pudding from the lunch ladies, and I just wanted somewhere quiet, and I'd just go sit there and eat my pudding and chicken sandwich in my quiet little spot.
That sounds great.
It was a good spot.
Yeah.
And then he
More
took it
spots
away.
like that, yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So how did you get from there to flying?
So from there, I did eventually get to the Odyssey, that coveted place.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think opened that up is, and I didn't mention him before, but Alan Stewart was becoming a powerhouse of the Space Center because of his programming prowess.
Mhm.
He and my brother worked a lot in the Odyssey and made friends with Dave Wall and Brian Hawkins, and they became kind of that quintessential Odyssey group. And every once in a while, I got to go and help out as the doctor, and so that got me that opportunity to kind of spread out from the Voyager. And actually, I'd probably say that I did that a little bit as I was doctoring in the Voyager, and then the time that I got to be a blue shirt was when I was strictly in charge of the engineering section of the Voyager for one of those summers. But then Steven got sucked into the Voyager because he was the grand poopah, and Vic never let him do anything but that because no one else could do it quite like Steven. So, but yeah, and that it was shortly after that they had a need for a new flight director, and the only opening was down in the new Galileo that Kyle Herring had brought over. And so I trained with Kyle for many, many months down in the Galileo, and learned how to become a flight director down there, and started doing flights and after-school missions. I never did any field trips. Just after school and weekend hours is what I pretty much picked up for the Galileo. And I think it was at that point Kyle got sucked into helping to build and design the Magellan, and so that gave me more responsibilities with the Galileo. And I think I was the set director. I don't remember. I think
Kind of blurred line there.
It was one of those. I was one of the primary people down at the Galileo, and the Galileo, typically you get someone down there, and if they're happy enough down there, you just ignore them because they're doing fine down at the Galileo. And you just, as long as there's no bad reports coming from it, you just keep humming along. So,
Wow.
but yeah, and then I helped out with the Magellan as a supervisor from time to time, but at that point it was more that we got pulled in because they needed a really experienced staff, because we were doing the Babylon 5 universe, which took about 20 minutes of video for them to watch at the beginning of their mission. And then we'd get into it, so you'd have to work really fast to get anything done in any of those Magellan missions. But so I did a little bit of that and kind of bounced around as needed, but was primarily in the Galileo, and eventually flight directed in the Odyssey for the last summer, and I was going back and forth between the Odyssey and the Galileo for the last little bit.
So you left the Space Center for a time, went to college, started teaching, and then you came back as the director. How did that all happen?
Well, didn't you actually do something up at USU, or am I mistaken completely?
So in 2002, I graduated from high school at Orem High, and then I went up and did a year at USU. They did have the Pathfinder simulator that was built by Dave Wall. It had been in the Salt Lake region, but then it got moved up to Logan because his brother worked up there and was a teacher, and they were trying to find a place where it would be utilized. And so I did kind of help things get going, and we did a few months, the last bit of the spring semester of the school year, we did some field trips for Cache County and Logan City School District, going through there. And unfortunately, that we hired on someone we thought would do a pretty good job, but since there was really scarce and nobody up there knew how to do some of the stuff, it kind of died off while I served my mission in England. So, so yeah, we did a little bit of stuff up there, but and I even kept trying to resurrect it a little bit after I got back, and most because Dave Wall designs really excellent ships. He designed the original Odyssey, and he designed this trailer that had been converted into a simulator, and it looked fantastic, and had some really nice features, and kids up there hadn't had a chance to experience it, and that was a great way to try and get them involved. But the downfall is there just wasn't anyone supporting it up there kind of full time. So
that makes sense.
So yes, I did do some stuff up there. There was another program up there long before I got up there, and it was actually housed in the engineering department of USU. They had a small simulator and kind of a Mars rover area that we went up and visited once as a staff.
Where's the Pathfinder now? Anyone know?
The Pathfinder has been decommissioned. It had been parked for a very long time, and the school district finally said, go get anything of value out of it because we're going to take it to the junkyard.
Oh, really?
Sad.
Yep. At least that's what I understand happened.
Interesting. So once you graduated from USU with your degree in social studies, teacher's degree, then you just came down to here to the Space Center?
So yeah, I taught up there. I taught computers for a time, and then I finally got into a history position, kind of opened up over time. And I was teaching up there at a charter school, and it was a fantastic job, and we loved Logan. We had a nice little house that we were able to invest in, and we had our 2 boys were born up there, and things were going really well. And I heard about a lot of the different things that were happening down here, and I kind of kept track and kept touch with people of things that were going on. And every once in a while, I'd email Mr. Williamson and find out what was going on. and he would, ask when I was going to come and teach or fly in the summer or do things like that. And you got to get away from those charter schools, he'd say.
And now he's at one.
Ironic, isn't it?
Yep. And so yeah, he every once in a while he'd try and coax me down here, but it was good and no reason to leave. And then when it closed down for a time, tried to help out what little ways I could, being so far away and not really knowing what was going on.
Mhm.
And then after it reopened, kind of kept touch with what was going on and just paid attention to what was happening. And let's see. I remember coming back from my religious practices at a conference for a general group of people who held a certain priesthood. And that's when I saw the opening that they were going to try and hire a teacher on Vic's blog.
Mm.
And so then I emailed Megan and I said, hey, what's going on with this? I saw these details, and tried to find out a little bit more about what was happening, and found out that they wanted to have a certified teacher to fill in for Megan's position. And so I asked a little bit more about it, talked about it with my wife. We had tried at one point to come down previously, but couldn't get a job at the district,
Mhm.
and just didn't have any success. And so we said, we'll stay up here and it's fine.
Mhm.
But when that opening came up, I said, well, I'll go and apply and see what happens. And sat down and had my interview with Dr. Carter and G.D. Bates and I think there was someone else. It was just Dr. Carter and G.D. Bates, who are the main people over at the administrative level. But yeah, after that interview, just kind of waited to hear back. Negotiated with them a little bit because it was a bit of a pay drop to, actually it's pretty decent pay drop to come down and take the position. But they found some ways to make it so it would work. Because the other thing is that in moving from Logan to Utah County, the housing prices were significantly higher.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the big problems is, it'd be nice to move down and be near family and keep the Space Center going. But also, got to take care of your family and all that good stuff.
Of course.
But we ultimately decided that it would work out well enough, and it'd be nice to be close to the family and get a job that I've always kind of really enjoyed, and that's when I accepted the position and came down.
Wow. And you've been piloting the ship ever since.
Yes.
So where are you taking it? What are you trying to do with the Space Center concept?
I think one of the things that everybody that gets associated and connected with the Space Center is there's something special about it that draws them in, and there's many different facets to it. We like to think that there's a common theme, but there's a lot of different reasons why people come here. Some of it's social, some of it's the educational value that they just really appreciate, and some people it's just the escape that it's been for them in their lives. And so one of the big things that I would say that I want is to make sure that whatever magic people can find, they can still find it here, and they can get something out of this program in whatever way that they're looking to get it, and in whatever way it's going to surprise them too. I think a lot of people look back and see the value of the program after their life has moved forward a bit. But my goal is I see the value of giving everybody the opportunity to be able to participate and experience a little bit of that magic. And if it's something that directs their life for good, then they come back again. And so we need to give a lot more people that initial opportunity to be able to come to the Space Center. And so the field trip program is very much a focus of what I want to see increased. I want to see us be able to have more kids come and participate and go home just amazed. Then my other goal is that we provide additional opportunities for them. I want them to be able to go out and pursue computer science, or I want them to go out and pursue acting, or whatever it is that might be, even remotely related, that we can inspire them to push through some of the difficulties and barriers that are out there and say, this is something that I do want to do in life because I was inspired to do it, and hopefully we give them some additional resources that help them to be able to do that. So whether it be outreach programs, or whether it just be that we continue to motivate them by volunteering, being involved in that and having to meet the standards to be a volunteer, whatever it is, I hope that we help people push on to something greater, and that we can be a springboard for it.
Wow.
That's really cool.
So what are the specifics involved in this vision that you have?
One of the biggest things right now is that the school is going to be rebuilt and the Space Center along with it, and so we're working really hard to come up with a decent plan to build something amazing that lasts for the next 50 plus years. Long after I'm gone, hopefully we have a facility that continues to do what we have been doing for so long. And so a big part of that is we looked at it, and again, like I said, we want to reach out to more people, so we need a bigger facility. And the primary crux at that is that we need a bigger planetarium, because that's just such an effective tool for inspiring people very quickly and effectively. And so we're doing some donation and promotions to get people to participate in helping us to build a planetarium, including community businesses and organizations and foundations, so that we can hopefully get a really nice permanent planetarium that people can use during school for our field trips, after our field trips for Central Elementary and other neighboring schools like Logan and Logan High and Junior High. No, not Logan. So that Pleasant Grove Junior High and high school could come before or after school and use the planetarium, and then in the evenings for us to do special events and planetarium shows. Sadly, we're in a city and we can't see a quarter of the stars, even at a distance from major sources like Salt Lake for light pollution. And so it's great for us to have a resource that can be affordable, hopefully, that they can come and see and be inspired. I think one of the great things is the stars are like one of those unifying elements where we can all look up together and we can all together imagine what's out there, and also feel a desire to go out and see what's out there, and that unifying aspect that everybody can see it and everybody can enjoy it. That's something I hope the planetarium brings.
That's really cool.
And it's special because we then can turn around and take people there with our simulators.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things is that you look at all the technology that we enjoy, and everybody loves to point out how much Star Trek and Star Wars has influenced the technology that we have, and you go, yeah. And you know what? Someone read comic books as a kid and started writing these stories that became these major movies that inspired even more people. So, yeah, hopefully we can be a continued inspiring force for good.
So what has made the greatest impression on you at the Space Center? Because I know you said in your explanation that the Space Center has made an impact on others and has almost directed their life to a certain focus or a certain direction. What has made the greatest impact on your life from the Space Center?
It was always a great place to go and feel safe, and it was a great place for me to bond with my brother. We were good, typical brothers that fought a lot, but we couldn't fight at the Space Center. We had to get along, or at least fight without people seeing. And I'd say that's one of the best benefits that I've had, is it developed a better relation with my brother. That's a connection that we've always had and continue to have. And it's one that, helped us get through difficulties with our parents' divorce and other things like that. One of the reasons that I went into teaching that I explained to people is the Space Center. I get this great aha moment that these kids come in and they're excited about what they've accomplished. And the only other place where you can really, I think, see that happening is in teaching, and that's part of why I went into teaching. And teaching is great. You get those aha moments a little bit less immediately, and it takes a little bit more work, but it's no less gratifying. It's probably more gratifying because you get to see the progression of these students over a long period of time. So as far as what it's done for me is it helped me get a focus. And one of the great things too, and I think the reason why I want people springboarded into understanding what they want to do in life is I look at how much time people waste in college. And a lot of people are like, oh no, it's a good time to find yourself and understand. I go, yeah, but you know what, you're missing out by going, I'm going to go a direction, and I'm going to see where it takes me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that it would take me here. I didn't think that I would end up being the director of a space center, but I knew what things I was good at and what things I wanted to do, and I moved in that direction. And I didn't waste a lot of time. I got through my program pretty quickly, and I think that was a big help for me. It saved me a lot of money. It lets me live on a teacher's budget a lot better because I didn't have a lot of student debt. So there's a lot of benefits that I look at it, and I could point to it. But just as you can point to a specific thing like the Space Center and say, oh yeah, look at all that it's done for me, you have to look at all the different people that were involved along the way. You have to look at Victor and the influence that he had on people.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at the friendships that I made. Even if there were people that I didn't get along with back then as other volunteers, I still fondly remember the things that I learned from them and want to connect with them again because they are such great people and they influenced my life and shaped me to be who I am. Even some of the negative situations that I look back with my experience of the Space Center, the times where I had to go and clean up something because we were in trouble. We didn't do it the first time, or we didn't do it the right way, or when somebody else was shirking their responsibilities, and I learned that lesson and said, I don't want to be in that situation, and things like that. It's not so much that the Space Center is like the end all. Here's what it did to change my life. But it was a place where people came together, and in that process of coming together, we all collectively changed. And I think that it collectively built a better community for us. It collectively brought us towards some common goals and benefited many, many lives, even if it's only that small piece of their life. So it just happens that mine kind of came around in a circle, and I ended up being involved again.
Wow. I think that is a beautiful place to wrap this episode up. Unless you have any other comments, either of you.
No, I think that's great. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with us?
You can donate to the Space Center at spacecenter.alpineschools.org/donate and help us build a planetarium.
And I will say, for one, that you will get a great pleasure after donating, because you know that you are putting money towards a program, just as James explained, just barely, that you're putting money towards something that will help others have a great experience and help others have something like what James has, be inspired and have that goals inspired in their minds to take their life's path on.
Matt speaks from experience because he was maybe the first person to donate to the new planetarium project. So
That's right. Matt is our first official donor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
So I can say without remorse, go donate.
It's only by viewers like you that make this community project happen.
All right, this is just getting sickening. All right, I'm cutting this off here. Thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts or ideas or requests to be interviewed, shoot us an email at drydocktalk@gmail.com. And we will catch you guys again in a couple of weeks.